Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at Pitafi World, and with me are Farrukh, Pitafi and Raja Faisal. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the current scenario in India, what is going on there, especially in reference to the way that minorities, including Muslims, of course, are being treated within India. And we've seen numerous incidents in the past as well that point towards the kind of violations that take place not only in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but also, of course, in the rest of India, where we've seen so many episodes of targeted violence against Muslims. We've seen communal riots. We've also, of course, taken a look at various policies that have been targeting Muslims. And then, of course, the way that recently we've also seen other minorities, including Christian minorities, being targeted, especially in states like Manipur, in which violence has unfortunately increased for a very long time. And after a ban on internet in the area and a short lifting of this ban, we saw that the internet was curbed once again when there were photographs released of two students in Manipur belonging from the Christian community there as well, and there have been statewide protests. And so, of course, we've also seen the way that the opposition alliance has been reacting to these incidents, claiming that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi does not even bother to visit the state, and it is because of the way that the BJP has put forward its own rhetoric and hate speech that we see such violence continuing, and they are in fact the ones responsible for inciting and encouraging it as well. At the same time, of course, we know that there are upcoming elections in India, and we've seen in a report by Hindutva Watch, a Washington-based group, that talks about how in a lot of areas within India there is an increase in the anti-Muslim rhetoric and incidents of hate speech, and most of these states are those that are currently being ruled by the BJP, and those in which elections were upcoming. And so this is an important correlation as well that we're going to be taking a look at, and then whether or not the BJP has any real substantial threat from the opposition alliance, and what will be done in terms of curbing the kind of violation that we see in the Indian society, and the kind of radicalization, the way that the Hindutva ideology is being put forward, and of course the way that there is increasing extremism and intolerance within the country, and is in fact something that is being propagated by the state. So this is something that we'll explore further and see what really is the current scenario and how do we see India moving ahead. Of course, Faisal and Farrukh are going to be with me in the discussion. We've also been joined online by Indian human rights activist Dr. John Dayal. Thank you very much, Dr. John Dayal, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you, given, of course, the way that we have seen unfortunately, circumstances deteriorate over the years and in the recent months as well. Of course, Manipur is a very strong example of the kind of depths to which this intolerance has seeped, and the way that this is being used for ulterior and political gains. And so I want to then understand, given the kind of response that we've seen from the BJP and the Prime Minister, of course, this is something that points towards a very dark future for India. But is there anyone that actually shares that concern among the leadership as well, including the opposition alliance, which of course seems to be talking against the BJP on a number of issues, but really are they going to be able to play a role of a savior?
I think that's a very comprehensive situation report you have given. But let me tell you one thing. The elections due to several state assemblies, and there's a general election next year, or possibly late this year, we don't know. Could be anywhere between December of this year and February or March or April of next year. So having said that, the situation quite obviously is terrible. 5 months on almost, a couple of days left. 3rd of October, it'll be 5 months since Manipur burst into flames. And so far, nothing seems to be done to quell the violence. The lifting for a very short while of the internet discovered the death of 2 Maiti people, largely Hindu, and Earlier, all these 4 months presumed to be the main attackers on the cookies, who are largely, if not entirely, Christian. So, quite obviously, there's been violence on both sides. The government has sided with the Maithis, but that itself doesn't help very much. The Supreme Court has intervened. The Chief Justice has been very severe. 3 women judges have been appointed to oversee relief, rehabilitation, and I suppose some element of justice. The Central Bureau of Investigation, every other investigative agency is involved in the investigation, but nothing seems to be moving on the ground. In fact, there have been alarming reports that private armies, insurrectionists, are now moving around in trucks painted to look like those of the official army, and that can lead to disastrous consequences. The problem is that although the opposition is trying very hard to make Manipur a major issue, it remains an issue in the far northeast corner of India and has so far not created the buzz that we were expecting in the rest of the country. And this is a very dangerous trend that they seem to be not concerned about what's happening in the Northeast. However, in the rest of the country, Islamophobia, targeted violence against Muslims, targeted violence against Christians seems to be gathering momentum, and the response to it has been gathering momentum. So if Mr. Modi thinks that polarizing the body politic on the eve of the elections are going to fetch him votes, I think he would have to learn that this time around there's going to be quite a strong pushback by civil society, by a large number of political parties collected in a group called INTIA or India, most of them are Hindu parties. So it is not that it's a Muslim or a minority pushback or even a civil society pushback. This is a pushback by the official parties which represent the Hindu mainstream as much as the BJP represents the right wing nationalistic streak of the of the population. So this pushback is quite strong, I would say, at this particular moment. Uh, the large-scale demonstrations, road marches, road shows will take place as the elected fever catches on. Candidates for the state assemblies are being chosen, and I think the interest shown by the I still call them the opposition. They're trying to be the ruling party. And the BJP is reflective in the fact that the BJP is now choosing its strongest candidates for the state of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. For instance, sitting MPs, sitting top leaders of the party are being pushed to fight assembly elections, normally something which is left essentially to junior candidates. And this would show that whether we like it or not, the BJP is worried. It is going to put all it can in the election. Mr. Modi is again going to be the face. He's going to be sharp. He's going to be abusive. He's going to focus on every point that divides the country, including the issue of Islamophobia, as I mentioned, and what he perceives as a threat from the collective parties. The incident in Canada has added a small dimension to the politics of the Punjab. So collectively, I would think that Manipur is still not becoming an election issue, but the rest of the two parties, the India Collective and Mr. Modi's BJP, are now raged against each other in the battlefield, quite ready to do battle. And the confidence of Rahul Gandhi and other political leaders is remarkable, considering that a year ago they were presumed to have been written off.
Right, and that's an important point that you talked about. And Faisal, I'd like to explore it further, given, of course, that when we talk about the BJP and the BJP-led government, there are a number of issues that we can point out, of course, in terms of the policies, in terms of the violations that have taken place, and in terms of the treatment of minorities. But I also then want to understand that even though, of course, there seems to be an alliance emerging that opposes the BJP, and that might be a positive sign at its face value, but is it really the kind of encouraging step forward that we need and we hope to see, given the fact that what Dr. John was also referring to is that they perhaps also share certain sentiments. There is also that nationalist agenda there. Are they representative enough of the minorities? Will they be able to cater to the kind of issues that are there? Are they even considering all of that? Is that something that then pulls us away from that sort of hope on the alliance, or do you think that shouldn't even be something that the onus shouldn't even be on that alliance to begin with?
Sana, if we talk about election 2024 of India, to me, I think it is the most important election which is going to take place of the modern India's history. Why I say this? Because in this election, what we are going to see is
right. And Faisal, I'd like you to hold that thought. We'll be coming back and continuing the discussion after a short break. Welcome back to the debate. We're of course talking about the situation in India and the way that minorities are being treated. And earlier we were talking about whether or not the opposition alliance that is of course opposing the BJP and might seem like a good step forward really is the solution or not. And Faisal, of course, we were talking about exactly what sort of an agenda does this alliance actually bring, and whether or not they will be able to represent the concerns of the minorities and change the current situation in a substantial way.
Yeah, Sana, if we, in entirety, if we talk about election 2024 of India, to me, I think it is going to be the most important election in India's history. Why I say this? That because the divides within India, they are of that nature that this election is going to decide the future of India. If we talk about, of course, today's India and the 25 odd parties that are making an alliance against the BJP, I think it's a good step forward. Why I say this? Because they represent the secular India. They represent the India that we used to believe that it existed in Constitution of India.
But do they really represent that?
Well, to me, I think the effort of representing that is there. Okay. Whether they are going to stick to it or not, it is obviously for the future to see whether they are going to do it or not. But if we, overall look at the situation, of course, it is election between secular India versus Hindutva ideology. Of course, BJP is backed by Hindutva ideology. And what is Hindutva ideology? Hindutva ideology is that they want to declare India does not exist anymore, whereas Bharat and Hindustan should be the words that should be used for representing today's secular India. Why I'm saying this? Because they believe that the only existence that is most prominent in India, that is of Hindutva ideology, that is of supreme bloodline of the Hindus. Rest of all, they don't exist at all, especially the minorities, be they Christian, be they Muslims, be they Sikh. They do not believe in that they are genuine part of today's India. And Sana, if we explore further why it is happening and why such kind of brains they are so corrupted in today's India, and why this ideology persists, to me, I think it is all to do with the inferior complex they have developed since a long time, and that to them is that for 1,000 years they've been, of course, living under the influence of Muslims first, and then the Christians, of course, the British, when they conquered India, they believe that they were, they were the ones who occupied us, first the Muslims and then the Christians. That is why in today's India, what we're seeing is the youth is being injected with these kind of poisons in their brains. That is why you couldn't progress previously, because you were succumbed to the of course the influence of Muslims and then influence of the Christians before. And that is why we're seeing in Manipur today, whatever is taking place against the Kuki tribe, the only crime Kukis are making is that they are Christians and they follow the Christian faith. And against them, of course, the Meitei tribe predominantly, of course, it's a Hindu tribe, and they are backed by the center, backed by the New Delhi, backed by Nagpur. Why I say Nagpur? Because RSS existence and the headquarter, it exists in Nagpur, and that ideology is corrupting everyone in Manipur, especially the Meitei tribe, and they are forcing them to bring this havoc on Kuki tribe because Kukis are Christians. Overall in India, if we see the Muslim population, of course they are facing the same at the hands of extremist thought that is persisting in today's India. One of such example I want to give is that in today's newspapers there is a story of a father and a son who first left India and went to Afghanistan on a, of course, visit visa and whatever, and from Afghanistan they simply crossed the border illegally into Pakistan, and they reached to Karachi, and of course they were captured by the police there, and they are maintaining that no matter what, we are not going to go back to India. The only reason behind it is that they believe that in today's India, even the graves of the Muslims, they are not safe, and if we want to die, at least we'll die in India and die peacefully, and at least nobody would be bothering our graves. This is the level of discrimination in today's India, especially against Muslims and Christians, and that is why people are forced to make such decisions. Right. To me, I think the coming up election, it would be a decider one of the future of India. To me, if India is still going on with the BJP, still wants Modi as Prime Minister, still want RSS ideology to flourish in today's India, then I see balkanization is just around the corner, because to me, I think people at large, they would not be accepting it. Of course, if vote doesn't decide their fate, then something else would do.
Okay, and Farrukh, this is important, especially in terms of what the people actually believe and what they want to choose. There is, of course, this ban that was on the internet in Manipur, and we've seen before in the past as well, that in a lot of ways there has been a limited and very tailored content that has been perhaps given to the public at large, even within India and outside of India, as to what really is what is really going on and what the true picture is, in which of course may be false, but this is what the people are actually seeing on their media and developing opinions accordingly. And I want to understand that given such a scenario where such a huge and deep propaganda is going on, and then there is so much that is being done to curb any sort of dissenting voice, I want to then understand how much do the people really understand the situation, are really able to actually then decide and choose as to who or what their leader needs to do. And then also given the fact that when we take a look at the impact that the action such as banning internet has on the people, there is this rationale given that this is to curb disinformation and to help support peace in a certain situation. But what really do you think is the impact, and what is the objective here?
Thank you, Sana. I think it is plain censorship. And when you actually have this kind of blanket censorship, then it becomes, it proves that you are no more a democracy, or your democracy is weakening. I have a suggestion though. I am going to keep my comments short because the guest of honor is Dr.
John
Dayal, so I want to hear him more. So my suggestion would be, after this humble submission, next time you alternate between us, ask one question to one of us and then to Dr. Dayal, because he has a lot to add here. But I wanted to actually also mention 2 or 3 things that are very important, Sana. One, the word minority is quite, disorienting and confusing for many people, because minorities are minorities, but there are so many of them in a country which is so diverse like India, that in the end you have to actually look at the breakup of that as well. And I think that the world, for some reason, one reason or the other, perhaps because of us, because of diaspora, has been paying attention to the plight of Muslims, now to Sikhs as well. But the biggest, victim at this moment that we don't even pay attention to is the Christian minority in India. Especially because you're merely talking about something that has happened recently, Manipur, right? In 2008, in Odisha, something similar happened that was shameful. The way Christians were paraded, the way they were, killed, more than 36, I think, people were killed there. And the way they actually were persecuted is beyond anybody's imagination. Now here, the actual concern comes that Indian government, after censoring its own media, seems to be censoring international media also. We have seen what happens to Twitter, the way Twitter is being told repeatedly to censor content. Then we saw the documentary on Modi. There too, they tried to censor it. In the end, they couldn't. So, surprise, surprise, the head of BBC was sacked or removed, right, or asked to leave. So this kind of censorship is going, and I think that it is important to pay attention to what is going on with the Christians, because as someone who has been raising voice for Christian community in Pakistan as well, I think it is important to remember that in the end, all these colors that we have, ethnic, lingual, caste-based, or or religion-based, they are just colors, and in the end, we all are human beings. If a society does not value a human life, that society is going to be cursed, and it is going to be subjected to more crises in coming days.
Yeah.
Having said that, now my concern is not that BJP keeps on using the same tactics again and again. The BJP and its allies are more or less one-trick pony. They keep on doing exactly the same thing, repeatedly marginalizing and targeting minority dissenters, dissidents, and people who are secular or conscientious, right? But why is it that it keeps on succeeding every time? And this is the question we tried to address yesterday as well, but I will wait for my turn again. When you come back to me, I'm going to actually talk about that too.
All right. Dr. John, the situation, of course, given what is happening, I'd like to also understand your take on what Faisal commented earlier, given the opposition alliance, and whether or not they are representing a secular India, and also add to that the situation given the current circumstances against the, of course, Christian community in Manipur, and we know, of course, of many incidents against Muslims. There is, of course, the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and then, of course, what has happened in Canada and the way that the Sikh community is being targeted. I want to understand then if this is something that is happening on such a wide scale across multiple religions, across borders as well, is that not enough to substantially change the way that we look and understand India at the moment, and whether or not any of that change is impacting the domestic politics of India as well?
So first of all, let me thank Farrukh Pitafi Sahib. It is not often that a fellow debater comments to the host that somebody like me should be given some more time. Usually it is the other way around. So thank you, Farrukh Pitafi Sahab. I am obliged, I'm grateful. And that is how a gentlemanly debate should go. But let me begin with Raja Faisal Sahab. Those two, father and son, make for a tragic story. But here I am, appearing on Pakistan TV. I have a wife, a child. And there are 1.25 billion people like me. A quarter of them are Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, and Buddhists. That's a very large number in terms that you and I will understand. There's practically 30 crore people that we are talking about, give or take 5 crores. And that's a very big population. They're not fleeing. They're sitting, they're standing their ground, they're willing to fight. But that is step one. Let's not go by somebody who's trying to flee for whatever reason. Maybe he's fleeing for a better life for his individual self. But for us, the large number, this is home. And this is what we want to wrest back from Hindu Rashtra. We want to wrest back India from Hindu Rashtra. I'm not worried about Bharat. Bharat was always a part of India, and the Constitution puts it very clearly. The second positive I give to you is India has geopolitical, geographic regions with very, very sharply different profiles. South India is not the Indo-Gangetic Plain. The Indo-Gangetic Plain is not the Far East. So here is the whole of South India, including Maharashtra, excluding Orissa for the moment. You've got about 7 states there, which are the ones that we are not only banking upon, but which are even today not with Mr. Modi. And that's a very strong point. The seats in parliament may not be commensurate with the thing. They may have only 1/3 of the seats and 2/3 maybe with the BJP and its allies. The second is the sharp analysis of the 19 election. The votes are now been calculated almost to the constituency, to the polling booth. And it's clear Mr. Modi won on something like 17% of the total votes in India. But about 30%, 33% of the votes cast, to a very different thing. So here we are, of the voting public, only about 20% of them are clear voters for him. Why the disproportionate number of seats in parliament? Scientists and psephologists and mathematicians and modelers and artificial intelligence are racking their brains. First past the post can be a very tricky thing. The Congress may win a seat by 80% votes and lose a seat by 1 vote. And when you add this up, the total then is not representative of the votes cast for that. So let's remember that and see how it is reflected next time. Maybe the Karnataka schema that we saw, where it was to see how we can consolidate the votes so that every constituency there's a fight and a winning possibility, and it showed some results. So that was the second thing. The third thing I wanted to point out was the economy. You may want Hindu Rashtra, you may hate the Muslims, the Christians, the Sikhs, the Buddhists, but you want for your son a job. The middle class wants a job, a big job. The poor want maybe a low-paying job, but each of them wants a job. And there will be no job creation in 10 years. So ultimately, people are seeing through the rhetoric of Bharat Shining, of G20 and all the other crap, and are saying, where are the jobs? Show us the jobs. And there are no jobs to be shown. And this is reflective in other things, schools. You talked about it, and it wasn't so. Roads, you make, and they go bonkers in the first rain. The health services, even for a person like me or somebody in your stature in India, it is so expensive that the pandemic robbed us of human beings, robbed us of all our savings, robbed us of, and made a huge dent in the economy. Collectively, Mr. Modi will find it very difficult to explain the many failures, and that forces him to create the rhetoric of Islamophobia, of Christophobia, of Nehruphobia. And that is something, if he comes there, then I think this time the INDIA is better equipped to tackle him, I think, constituency by constituency. The collective between civil society, between influencers, between political parties and their cadres. The only India is short of, the party India is short of, is cash, because we do not know. There's such opacity in the election boards. Where is the money gone? Most of the money that the corporate sector gave, 1/3 and 2/3. 2/3 went to the BJP, 1/3 to the other parties collectively. Then comes the money that the Prime Minister's office collected, the PMO fund. Where is it gone? Nobody knows. Is it being diverted? Is it being... Nobody has a clue. The demonetization, the large chunk of money that went underground, nobody has a clue. And these things come up in election, and we have to be on our guard against it. But let me assure you, we are not fleeing India. We want to fight it out and win.
Right, and that's wonderful, Dr. John Dayal, and we of course hope to hear more voices such as yours and more people actually standing up to what is going on. But Faisal, given the situation and the way that we have seen the BJP act previously as well, I want to understand there is of course a lot of costs that one has to pay to put up a fight and to actually be able to stand with the truth and hope for some change and actually strive towards change. How much of that do you think will be possible in the face of what is going on and the way that the power dynamics run within India, with the BJP also, of course, then being able to influence the media, being able to influence what is going on in the streets. There is so much rhetoric against Muslims and other minorities, of course, with the institutions also being involved. How exactly will it then be able to be something that will not withstand the way that people respond to it, the way that people stand up to it? How much will the people then have to do, and how many would we require for that to actually happen?
Yeah, Sana, obviously I'll come towards the propagation and promotion of obviously the anti-BJP narratives. But first of all, you know, a very important point which was highlighted by Dr. Dayal, and that was that out of 33% of the voters, only 20% overall the population, the voters, only 20% of the voters, they voted for Modi to bring him into power, which is quite remarkable and which tells us that in today's India, of course, the problem is that more voters, they need to cast vote. If they cast vote, it would obviously show that the majority of India is part of the electoral system. Yeah. And that election, in coming up election, obviously we need to look into the facts that what are the factors that are keeping the people away from voting for their desired candidates. And it would be quite interesting whether the coming up election are going to see more voters turning up, or the turning the voters turnout is going to be the same as previously. If it is as previously, then obviously BJP and RSS, they are quite motivated to vote for their candidates because they want their kind of change in the country, and of course they will get it once more. Here the points you were highlighting, and I really wanted to earlier talk about it. In today's India, the politics which BJP has of course adopted very early and other parties they have not, it is quite westernized. Why I say this? Because in Western countries, of course, the political parties, they seek for the donors. The donors are of course, the people who matter when it comes to economy of the country. I'm talking about the American elections. Of course, they have donors who are, of course, from the different industries. In today's India, of course, if we see the Adanis and all of these big giants who's been well catered by BJP during its tenure, especially Modi's tenure, what we have seen that there is a pattern that these billionaires, they have been attracted by BJP and they have taken the side of the BJP. And if we look at of course the media, the social media, of course they have a huge presence. BJP has a huge presence on social media. If we look at the electronic media, majority of them, they got bought by the same wealthy billionaires that are on the side of BJP. So surely they are going to be in the side of BJP in coming elections. We have seen in very recent past that the prominent names from the journalistic fraternity, they have been the ones who've been talking about the rights of the people, the ones who've been talking about the secular India, they have been washed out from the screens slowly and gradually. And of course we are seeing the many faces, the prominent faces on screens emerging from India. Majority of them we are seeing that of course they are taking the side of BJP right now. So this is happening there. Of course BJP is smart enough to invest on this side as well, and internationally the kind of people they've been sending out and the kind of influence they've been sending out to prominent countries and powerful countries like America, Canada, Britain, Germany, or if we talk about Australia, the majority of the people that actually went out there, they relate themselves with the ideology of BJP and RSS. And that is why we are seeing so many footages coming out that them people, they are so much into this ideology of the BJP that they are even arranging protests in the favor of Modi throughout Western countries. I mean, very recently I've been seeing one in which they have been clearly saying that we don't want India, we just want Hindustan, and we just want Bharat to persist.
Yeah.
It shows that the ideology, it has made a stand, and BJP has labeled itself with the a factory that is creating that kind of ideology,
Right.
and of course supporting the ideology. So far they have been very successful on that line. And of course the politics of divide, we have been seeing in recent past that BJP has outclassed everyone.
Right. Dr. John Dayal, there is of course a campaign that is being talked a lot about by the BJP, with the big outreach happening and them knocking on their voters' doors and speaking to them personally, and of course engaging them, and then ensuring of course their voter base. And I want to understand whether or not you think that this can add any value to the way that we see the BJP moving forward and performing in the electoral process, and whether or not this is something that is being done in order to enhance and re-emphasize on the Hindutva ideology and their supporters as part of this ideology, or is it then a move in which they're going to also be taking a look at perhaps new voters and bringing them on board as well?
Yeah, thank you very much. First, let me, through your channel, invite the Indian diaspora, which so loves Mr. Modi, to come back to India and vote for him instead of staying in the US. But from that point, another point arises. Yeah. The Hindu American Foundation is very strong. It has a deep influence on the Hill, on capital, the state capitals. It finances key councillors, key senators, key congresspersons. It has come to a situation, apart from the fact that India, like many other countries, buys so much military equipment from the US, electronic equipment, from France, from Germany, that it's such a good client and such a good associate in containing China that Biden is willing to forgive and forget almost everything. And he suffers the humiliation of not being able to speak in New Delhi, but having to go to Vietnam, of all places, to speak on his dialogue with Mr. Modi. Let me stop on this issue and come back to a very crucial issue that has been raised, which is boots on the ground. As in war, so in elections, how many people can you put on the ground? To begin with, at the voting booth, where votes are being cast, and you can point out who's fake, who's not fake. Then outside the voting booth, where you're still last minute campaigning is going on. Then apart from that, and they have voted, there's a voting booth for every 1,000 people. So you can imagine the large number of voting booths for which personnel have to be found. You can casually say for every voting booth, a minimum of 2, but a good amount of 5 people are required to manage the act of voting. Then the background. The RSS BJP have perfected a technique called Parcha Prabhuk, parchment or paper chief. They tear a paper out of the electoral roll and give it to the community RSS leaders. You go to every house and tell them to come out and vote. On voting day, you make sure that every possible voter of ours is brought to the election booth. And although failing them is illegal, but you can always say he's old, he's poor, he's weak, and I'm a friend. I'm not an election agent. And you can bring them. This is called Panna Prabhu. For all the other parties, mobilizing cadres. Many of these parties are not cadre parties. Some of them are caste-based parties. Some of them are ideology, as in Tamil Nadu, who have some cadres. It's only the left which you can really say has a cadre who doesn't need to be paid, who are there because of the ideological commitment. How many people, how many booths can the combined opposition, INDIA, put on election day will be largely instrumental in bringing the voter out of their house, because the good man stays at home, the bad man comes and votes.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. John Dayal, for joining us and being a part of the debate. Farrukh, of course, much remains to be seen as to exactly how this is going to pan out. But in so far that we've talked about, there is, of course, this question that is being raised of the inevitable future of India if these policies and such behavior actually continues. But how much of a cost will the people then have to pay, both inside and outside of India?
Right. I think, Sana, that cost still continues to be paid, and I think it will be paid in the coming generations as well. I wanted to actually add to or challenge certain things that Faisal said. Faisal said that in 2024 the elections are going to be the most important elections in the history of India. आपको देर हो गई. You are late. You know, the most important election that took place was 2014. At that time, the world community kept on sleeping, and so did most of us as well.
Yeah.
So, parivartan ab aayega. The change will come now? I don't think so. Right? I think that if you are looking towards India, the group, then you are actually mistaken in looking for hope, because they are the creators of today's BJP. Their incompetence, their fear, their cowardice has actually contributed to what BJP is today. I think that if you want to see hope somewhere, and speaking from as someone who comes from the land of Malala, who used to say, who says that one child, one teacher, one book, one pen can make all the difference. I think people like Dr. John Dayal, who are doing their small contribution, but within their range, I think that is going to have an impact eventually. Because why is it that all dictators, colonizers actually burn books? Right? Because they are afraid of the text, and there is always a message of hope there.
Right.
And I understand that I have to conclude, but I very quickly wanted to actually also point out that they keep on actually, this is the country where decolonization, which was thought to be a good concept, has become a vital tool in the hands of oppressors. That they are actually trying to write off all the history by effacing or effacing all other cultural influences. But take away the colonial experience of India, and what do you have? You have Stone Age, right? So I think that Christians, Muslims, they will keep on progressing, and they'll keep on asserting that they are important, and their contribution will stay intact. But the world community has to wake up and realize that Christians are being persecuted really badly.
Right, and this is of course something that is important in what you said earlier as well, in terms of small changes and small voices, and they come together, and there is that big change that one would want to see.
Very quickly, Sana, very quickly.
We don't have time, Faisal, unfortunately.
Just the one liner.
End here.
Yeah, just the one liner. The economic endeavors that world seeks from India, I think they need to, go away. And of course, India must be treated sanitary.
Thank you, Faisal. Thank you.